Before we start, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The silence after the phrase was worse than if someone had screamed. She sat in the hard plastic chair, hands clasped in her lap, trying to control her breathing. Her face felt hot, not with anger yet, but with that paralyzing mixture of shame and disbelief that makes the body go rigid and the mind go blank. You should be grateful that someone's interested in you. The police officer didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She spoke the way someone might comment on the weather, casual and detached. She looked at the black, fat woman sitting across from her with a tired half-smile. The kind that carries years of accumulated judgment. The kind that says this isn't the first time she's thought something like this. Only the first time she's said it out loud to this particular person. The way you are. Some women can't even get that much attention. Her body went rigid. The air in the room seemed too thick to breathe, pressing down on her chest like a physical weight. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellowish glow that made the dingy police station seem even more inhospitable than it already was. She hadn't come here out of vanity, not for drama or attention. She had come because a man had followed her on the bus, made comments about her body, loud enough for others to hear, crude enough to make her skin crawl. He had touched her arm without permission, his fingers lingering, his breath too close to her neck. She had come because she felt afraid, because she felt small and vulnerable and violated, because she believed, for one foolish moment, that she would be protected, that this was what police stations were for, that her fear mattered. But sitting there in front of a desk stained with old coffee rings and scattered papers, she realized she wasn't being seen as a victim. She was being seen as excess, as someone who should be grateful for any attention, even the kind that made her feel unsafe, even the kind that violated her boundaries and made her afraid to take the bus home. "So, you're not going to file a report?" she asked, her voice already trembling, already breaking. The police officer shrugged, a gesture so casual it felt like a slap. "File a report about what? A compliment you misunderstood?" The paper was never filled out. The incident was never recorded. As far as the system was concerned, nothing had happened. She left the police station with something far worse than what she'd brought in. The certainty that her pain wasn't valid, that her body made her unworthy of protection, that the world had decided she should be grateful for crumbs, even when those crumbs tasted like humiliation. That night, she told no one. Not because she didn't have people around her. She had family, co-workers, acquaintances, but because she was tired. Exhausted, really. Tired of explaining. Tired of hearing phrases disguised as advice, wrapped in false concern. But he was just playing around. You took it the wrong way. At least someone wanted you. That last one was the worst. Because it echoed what the police officer had said. Because it suggested that her worth was measured by other people's desire. That she should accept whatever treatment came her way because the alternative was invisibility. The officer's phrase returned like a cruel echo as she stood in front of the bathroom mirror that night. Large body, dark skin, deep circles under her eyes, hair pulled back carelessly without thought or care. She looked at herself and tried to remember when she had first learned that she was supposed to be grateful for scraps. When had that lesson started? Was it in elementary school, when the other girls got Valentine's cards and she got none? Was it in high school, when boys made jokes about her body and teachers pretended not to hear? Was it in her 20s, when family gatherings always included that awkward silence when the topic of relationships came up, everyone carefully avoiding looking at her? At work, the looks cut through her. Colleagues who smiled to her face but whispered when she walked past. The assumption that she wasn't worthy of the same respect, the same consideration. On the bus, the comments came with little laughs, with nudges between men who thought she couldn't hear or didn't deserve the dignity of discretion. In her family, there was that strained silence whenever romance was mentioned, as though her being single was either too obvious to discuss or too painful to acknowledge. It wasn't just loneliness. It was the constant grinding sensation that the world had decided she didn't deserve choice, that her body had disqualified her from agency, that she should accept whatever came her way because the alternative, being alone, being unwanted, was supposedly worse. And the worst part wasn't crying that night, though she did cry. She cried until her eyes were swollen and her throat was raw and her head pounded. The worst part was waking up the next morning and getting up anyway, making coffee, getting dressed, going to work, putting one foot in front of the other. Because women like her learn early that stopping hurts more than continuing. That giving up means letting the world win. That survival sometimes looks like pretending everything is fine when it's not. Like smiling when you want to scream. Like moving forward when every part of you wants to collapse. Months passed. The seasons changed. The incident faded into the background of daily life, becoming one more small trauma in a lifetime of accumulated small traumas. But something had shifted. She found herself thinking about that phrase more and more. You should be grateful. It played in her mind during sleepless nights. It surfaced when she was at work, when she was shopping, when she was simply existing in the world. And slowly, the shame began to transform into something else. Not quite anger yet. Anger would come later. But a kind of clarity. A recognition that what had happened wasn't right. That the officer's words weren't just casually cruel. They were a revelation of systemic rot, of institutionalized prejudice, of the way certain bodies are valued and certain bodies are not. She started researching. She learned about filing complaints, about internal affairs, about the mechanisms supposedly in place to hold police accountable. She discovered that what had happened to her had a name. Multiple names, in fact. Discrimination, prejudice, bias, the intersection of racism and fatphobia and misogyny, all wrapped up in that one casual phrase. She found online communities of women who had experienced similar things. Not identical. Every story was unique in its details, but similar in that fundamental dismissal, that sense of being told their experiences didn't matter, that their bodies made them unworthy of protection or respect or basic human dignity. And she made a decision. The building was different now. A different smell, less disinfectant, more professional, different wall color, actual paint instead of institutional beige, different chairs, proper office furniture instead of those terrible plastic ones. She sat more upright now. She wore simple clothes, but they fit her body well. Not to hide herself, to occupy space, to claim the room she existed in, to refuse to shrink. When she began to speak, her voice still trembled. But she didn't retreat, didn't apologize, didn't minimize. "I'm not here for revenge," she said, looking directly at the panel assembled before her. "I'm here because what happened to me happens every day to other women." The room was full. An administrative proceeding, an internal investigation, official reports and witness statements and procedural formalities. The police officer was there too, sitting, now serious. The casual dismissiveness was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped wariness. She repeated the phrase, exactly as it had been said. No exaggeration, no dramatization. "You should be grateful that someone's interested in you. The way you are, some women can't even get that much." A collective discomfort rippled through the room. Someone cleared their throat. Another person looked away. The officer's face reddened. "That phrase wasn't just racist," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "It wasn't just fatphobic. It was a silent authorization for me to be disrespected. It was confirmation that, for some people, my body dehumanizes me. It was an official telling me, in an official capacity, that I don't deserve protection, that I should be grateful for harassment because apparently, that's all someone like me can expect." She detailed the incident, the man on the bus, his comments, his unwanted touch, her fear, her decision to seek help. The officer's response, "I came to a police station seeking protection and left feeling more violated than when I arrived," she said, "because the person who was supposed to help me instead told me that my body made me unworthy of that help." The silence now was different. Not denial, not dismissal, listening. She presented her case methodically, cited policies, referenced anti-discrimination guidelines, presented evidence, not of the original incident on the bus, which had never been documented, but of the officer's response, which she had documented meticulously afterward. Dates, times, exact quotes. She had witnesses, too. Other women who had filed complaints with the same officer and received similar treatment. A pattern of behavior. A history of bias. When she finished speaking, she felt something she hadn't felt in that first police station. Seen, heard, taken seriously. She left that building knowing that, for the first time, she hadn't been diminished. The result didn't come quickly. Nothing ever does in bureaucratic systems designed more for self-protection than justice. But it came. The police officer was removed from public-facing duties. She was required to complete mandatory training on bias, discrimination, and proper victim interaction. The case became an internal reference point, cited in training materials, used as an example of what not to do. Small for the system. Enormous for someone who had always been invisible. She didn't become a hero. Didn't get a medal or a news story or public recognition. Didn't get rich. Didn't get a movie-worthy ending with soaring music and a standing ovation. But in the weeks that followed, something changed. On the bus, when a man tried the same gesture, reaching for her arm, leaning too close, she said, "No," out loud, firmly, clearly. And someone heard, and someone supported her. Another passenger moved closer, asked if she was okay. The driver noticed and told the man to sit down and keep his hands to himself. It was small. It wasn't perfect, but it was different than before. At work, when a colleague made a comment about her body disguised as a joke, she didn't laugh it off. She looked them in the eye and said, "That's not appropriate." The room went quiet. But unlike the silence in that first police station, this silence felt different. Respectful. Acknowledging. She understood finally that she didn't need to be grateful for being tolerated. She deserved respect. Period. Full stop. Without qualification. Not because she had achieved something special. Not because she had proven herself worthy, but because she was human. And that was enough. The system hadn't suddenly become just. The world hadn't transformed overnight. Racism still existed. Fat phobia still existed. Misogyny still existed. They would continue to exist, would continue to shape how she moved through the world, how she was perceived, how she was treated. But she had changed. She had reclaimed something that had been taken from her in that first police station. Her sense that her experience mattered. That her pain was valid. That she deserved protection and respect and basic human dignity, not as a gift or a privilege, but as a right. And that was a victory no one could take away. She carried it with her like armor, not to shut the world out, but to remind herself that she had every right to occupy space in it. That her body, her existence, her voice, all mattered. When she walked down the street now, she walked differently. Head up, eyes forward, present in her own skin in a way she hadn't been before. The world hadn't given her that. She had claimed it for herself. And in doing so, she had ensured that the next woman who walked into that police station, the next woman who needed help and protection, might, just might, receive it. That the officer who had dismissed her would think twice before dismissing someone else. That the system, however slowly, however imperfectly, might bend just slightly toward justice. That was the real victory. Not personal triumph, but collective progress. Not revenge, but transformation. She didn't need the world's permission to matter. She had given that permission to herself. And that changed everything. If you like this story, leave a like and subscribe for more.